Chevre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilach, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy, physically and spiritually. Today is Erev Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Vaschanan, Shabbos Nachamu. It's a very exciting time. As today is Friday and yesterday was Tisha B'Av, so obviously today we're still in the aura of the concept of Tisha B'Av, and what immediately follows is the Shabbos Nachamu. So this is what we're going to talk about today, is one of the most fundamental concepts in Judaism, touches upon good and evil, and the idea of growth through trials and tribulations. I would say that if one would give a talk about one of the Rebbe's central themes and contributions in Judaism, and which runs through many of his talks and works, it would be this concept. In Chassidus it's called Yerida Tzorech Aliyah. The idea that the descent was in order for the ascent. And the only way, as it stands now, till Mashiach comes, the only way that we come to the greater levels is first by having some sort of test, trial, tribulation, etc., as we'll discuss today. So let's start first with the pasuk, and that's going to be the pasuk of this week's first pasuk of the Haftarah. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami, Yoimar, Eloi Kechem, which means, translated, that the Yeshaya is saying that these are the words of Hashem: console, yes, my people, says Hashem to the prophets. So everyone knows, which is brought down in the first. And by the way, what I'm going to say today is based on a letter of the Rebbe. It's going to be a concept, by the way, which the Rebbe discusses in Likutei Sichos, Volume 2, on the Sicha of Pashas Kisavai. That's how most people know it, because it's a talk in the volumes of Likutei Sichos connected to a Pasha which talks about the Teichacha rebuke. But actually, originally, the Rebbe spoke this talk on the Shabbos Nachamu, connected to the concept of double consoling. And this is actually a letter from the Rebbe in volume 4 of his letters. Volume 4, page Tuf Yud Gimel. See there. It's tremendous. Short and sweet, amazing. And that is on this verse, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. So we have the question, why is it a Nachamu, a double consolation? So the Medrash brings down, there was a Nechama, Kivin Shaloksa B'Kafayim, since we were hit twice, so therefore Nechama B'Kafayim. One interpretation means that we got one temple was destroyed, another temple was destroyed, so therefore we have to be consoled twice over both temples. That's the most famous interpretation. But the Rebbe explains it as follows. It's a double consolation, is a lesson about life, and a lesson about creation, and a lesson about existence. Double consolation means that the consolation has to be double, not only in Kamus, quantitatively speaking, but it's a double consolation. The consolation has to be double qualitatively speaking. And the Rebbe says, to understand this in a very demonstrative manner, we'll understand it based on, and this is the famous talk of the Rebbe, based upon two Tanoim, Rebbe Kiva and Gamzu L'Tova, Nochem Ish Gamzu, as we'll speak about today, and what happened to each one of them as they encountered something difficult. But before we, so let's say the story. There's two Gemaras. There's one Gemara in Tainus and another Gemara in Brachas. One is a Gemara that talks about Nochem Ish Gamzu, and the other Gemara talks about Rebbe Kiva. First, let's say the story of Rebbe Kiva. Rebbe Kiva was once traveling, and on his way to traveling, he had to make a stop. He went into a city and he knocked on a door and another door, and he was turned down. The people of that city were not generous. And they were lacking in their mercy and kindness to another person. And anytime something bad happened to Rabbi Akiva, he would say, Kol ma'adav v'rachmana l'tavav. Whatever God does is for the good. He had no choice. He had to take shelter in the forest. And with him, he had a candle, a chicken, and a donkey. He had with him the candle for light. So if it was the middle of the night and he wanted to learn, he had a candle. He had a donkey because the donkey was what he was riding with the whole time, and the donkey was carrying the loads. And he had the chicken to wake him up in the morning. So he was traveling with his donkey, his chicken, and his candle. Yes? He went to the forest to have shelter. And in the middle of the night, a wind came, blew out the candle. Rabbi Akiva says, Kol ma'adav v'rachmana l'tavav. Whatever Hashem does is for the good. Some lion came and ate up the donkey. And also during the night, another predator came and took away the chicken. Rabbi Akiva wakes up in the morning, he doesn't have his donkey, he doesn't have his chicken. Kol ma'adav v'rachmana l'tavav. Whatever Hashem does is for the good. Anyways, he starts on his journey. He passes through the city. As he continues on his journey, he finds out that a Roman legionnaires came to that city and they took everyone captive. If he would have stayed in one of those homes, he would have been taken as a captive and sold as a slave. Not only that, if his chicken would have been with him, the chicken would have made noise. So too the donkey. And therefore he would have been discovered, found out. And the same thing for the candle, because the candle would have shown that there's light over there in that spot. So therefore, again, it was reaffirmed the truth of Kol ma'adav v'rachmana l'tavav. Everything that Hashem does is for the good. That's the story of Rabbi Akiva. That's one saying of our sages. We'll soon see how precise the saying of our sages is and how Torah is so beautiful. Nachamu was called Nachamu Ish Gamzu. It's like saying the man of Gamzu. It became like his name. Why was he called Nachamu Gamzu, Ish Gamzu, the man of Gamzu? Because everything by him would be Gamzu l'teva. This is also good. What's the story? The most famous story that happened with him, that there was a Roman emperor who was making very harsh decrees against the Jews, and the Jews decided to send Nachamu to appease the emperor, and they gave him a chest, treasure chest, so to speak, full with gems and rubies and diamonds, etc., etc. Anyway, so he's making his way with his chest to the Roman emperor, and he had to stay in the inn on his journey, on his way to the emperor. Middle of the night, the innkeeper and his family, they were suspicious about this chest that this person is carrying with him, and they discovered that it's full of a treasure, and they stole the treasure. They stole the treasure, and Nachamu Ish Gamzu gets up in the morning, and he sees that it's empty, or there's regular earth. They filled it up with earth, and he says, Gamzu l'teva, this is also for the good. Meanwhile, he makes his way to the emperor, and he starts telling the emperor that, listen, these decrees are very, very bad, and therefore you should know we decided to give you a gift. And he gave them this treasure chest, which had in it earth. And he says, this is the gift. The king opens it up, and he's filled with rage. You give me earth? That's the present? And he says, into prison. And he throws Nachamu into prison. Meanwhile, there was a trial, like in his absence. The king is meeting with his advisors. Hashem made a miracle that one of the advisors was Eliyahu Hanavi. And the king is talking about venting his rage, that how could the Jews have the chutzpah to send a distinguished scholar to appease him, and they give him a chest with earth, with soil. So Eliyahu Hanavi tells the emperor, nah, the Jews are smart people. Am chacham v'noven, they wouldn't be so stupid. Obviously, this earth is special earth. And he tells the emperor, you know, in the Bible, there's the story of Avram Avinu, that he went to rescue his nephew, and he just went with a couple of hundred men, but he was facing armies, a couple of armies of nations. And he had soil, and he threw that soil at the armies, and the soil turned into arrows and spears, and he was victorious. Meanwhile, this emperor of Rome was fighting wars on some fronts, and it was protracted, it was long, he wasn't winning the war. And he listened to what his advisor told him, which was really Eliyahu Navi. Who knows, wow, so this is a secret weapon. This is a new weapon that the world has never seen since the times of Avraham Avinu. Completely miraculous. And he trusted, he took Eliyahu Navi's advice, he went out to battle, he threw that earth on them, it turned into arrows and spears, and he was victorious. That's the story that the Gemara says. So, and then of course, Nachamu Gamzu was released, and the decrees became less for the Jewish people. Now, the Rebbe asks on these two stories a couple of questions. First of all, why did Rebbe Kiva, when he spoke about everything's for the good, use an expression of Kol Ma'adav Rachmana L'Tavavid? Whatever God does is for the good. And Nachum Ish Gamzu used to say Gamzu L'Teva. What's the difference in the wording? Why did this one use this expression? Why did that one use that expression? Another question. Gamzu L'Teva is in Hebrew Lashon Kodesh. Kol Ma'adav Rachmana L'Tavavid is an Aramaic. Why did this one use the Hebrew expression and this one use an Aramaic expression? And last but not least, interestingly, Nachamu Gamzu was Rebbe Kiva's teacher. So Rebbe Kiva is a disciple, a student of Nachamu Gamzu. Why are all these things significant? And therefore the Rebbe says, we're actually talking about two levels of how we see that everything is for the good. One is higher than the other. So we'll start with the lower level first. And we'll give an analogy. For example, if someone's unwell, you have to have a tooth extraction, or you need cavities, or you need to take medicine, or you need an operation. So all these things are unpleasant, painful, but guess what? You need the tzedek aliyah. If you take out the rotten tooth, then nothing's going to happen to your mouth. Then you become healthy. So in other words, we have something negative. We have to go through a process which is unpleasant, and through that, the situation gets taken care of. But basically, what it means is, we take care of a negative, and then it gets good. Not necessarily mamish better, as we'll see, but in any case, it means that the experience that we go through does have an experience of unpleasantness. And that's why we say, Kol Ma'adavid Rachmana L'Tavavid will be for the good. Like for example, if your plane, you missed your plane, it was delayed, then you find that it was hijacked or something terrible happened on the plane. So right now, you were very upset, you missed the plane, and it's going to cause you delays, and it's going to cause you all sorts of minor headaches. But then you say, wow, Baruch Hashem, because it could have been much worse. It would have been much worse. So therefore, Kol Ma'adav Rachmana L'Tav. I saw later how L'Tav, it became for the good. So it will be for the good. So L'Tav means in the future, but right now, I have to go through a painful or unpleasant experience in the same way that taking medicine itself, forget about operations or tooth extraction, sometimes just taking a pill doesn't taste good, you know? So that's Kol Ma'adav Rachmana L'Tav of it. And a higher level is Gamzu L'Tova. So first of all, we're saying Gamzu. We're looking at the thing itself, and we see how the thing itself is good. Nachamu Gamzu, even when he saw immediately that he lost the diamonds and the rubies, his level of betachin in Hashem is so powerful that he sees the thing itself good. Not that we're going to see later how it's good. Right now what I'm looking at is good, and it's not only stam good that we took away something negative, I gained out of it. It's a benefit. Just like in the story of Nachamu Gamzu, what he had right now was a miracle. He had earthly diamonds, rubies, replaced with something out of this world, something miraculous. So, and he was looking at it, and he had betachin that something special was going on right now. And that's what it means when the Git says Gam Zu L'Teva. It's not that he's looking at something that's negative, unpleasant, but we will see how it's for the good. But right now, this second is filled with an unbelievable joy, and he's able to point to it, like it says concerning the Kriyas Yamsov, Zeh Keli Van Veu is the highest level because, like Rashi says, Manabet's boy Vayima Zeh. He could look at it and point with his finger and says, this second, right now. Zu L'Toiva is good. And this, the Rebbe explains, so now we understand why this is Hebrew and this is Aramaic. Hebrew is a higher level than Aramaic. Lashon Kodesh is the highest level, it's called Kodesh. And that's why, I'm not going to get into that right now, this is also explained in L'Kutei Sichos Chilei Beis. Rebbe Kiva's level is a lower level because we are talking about how Nachamu Ish Gamzu at that time is the master, he's the teacher, it's a higher level, it's a higher age, the Rebbe explains. But then we come to a lower level, the level of Rebbe Kiva is only the level of the disciple, and it's Yididus HaDeiros, so he's not holding on that level of B'tachon so much. But the truth is, in Avodas Hashem, like I'm talking to myself now, and I'm talking to my students, or my friends, the Rebbe wants us, as the Rebbe spoke many times about Trachgut V'Zaingut, we're working on ourselves as much as we can. As one of the great things that the Rebbe spoke about again and again about Trachgut V'Zaingut, means that we're meant to live our lives more on the level of Gamzu L'Teva. And when you live your life on that level more of Gamzu L'Teva, you say about everything, and that was Nachum, that's why he said, he was always saying those words. Gamzu L'Teva, that's why he's called Nachamu Ish Gamzu, the man of Gamzu, because he constantly was saying Gamzu L'Teva. So that's the resolution we have to make about living our lives in such a way that we should see and feel to the best of our abilities. I'm talking to myself primarily. If someone else is going through various hardships, that Hashem should stop your hardships this second, whatever they are. But now I'm talking to myself, and what the Rebbe explains in the Sichos and the Maimorim, and this letter, is that we have to look inside ourselves and try to live with Gamzu L'Teva. And the more, there's no question about it, according to the Rebbe, the more one lives with the spirit and behavior of Gamzu L'Teva, the more he'll see it in the physical reality. And this is what the Rebbe explains, my friends. Listen to the Goines. Nachamu, Nachamu. Which means when Mashiach comes, if it was only one level of Nachamu, that would be like Rebbe Kiva's level. Kol ma'adovid rachmane litavovid. Which means we're going to see why we had to go through exile. And we're going to see how through exile we gained and there was good. But we're still going to have some sense. We'll remember the pain, even though it got better. We'll remember the past and still look at it like it was something that was unpleasant and uncomfortable, and a pain, and a headache, etc. But if we say, Nachamu, Nachamu, a double consolation, not only taking away something negative, but actually being something beneficial, being something miraculous, being something that's only good, in a way that we'll be able to point to it. We'll be able to look at it and see how this itself was totally good. Right now our brains can't wrap our heads around it, especially after so much of the suffering of the Jewish people through history. But we have to realize this is what we're waiting for. And this is what it means Mashiach. And this is what it means Nachamu, Nachamu, double. Like in the story, not of Rebbe Kiva, but in the story of Nachamu Ish Gamzu. Now, we've spoken about this many times, so I'm just going to give a quick recap of different examples of this concept. First of all, in general, Chassidus talks about what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. So, we have to remember the deepest, highest level in Kabbalah. We speak about that when Mashiach comes, there's not going to be only the revelation of the Oir Ein Sof Shelifnei Tzimtzum, the infinite light that was permeated existence, for lack of a better word, and that's going to happen also on this planet Earth, which that itself would have been an unbelievable chiddush, because there always was this level called Oir Ein Sof Shelifnei Tzimtzum, the infinite light before the contraction. The novelty is going to be that this light is going to be also on planet Earth. No, that's not the word. The word is that what's going to happen here on planet Earth was never revealed before. It's going to be a revelation of a light which is even higher than the Oir Ein Sof Shelifnei Tzimtzum. And that's why we have to go through this whole thing. I like to say a line. God's a winner. What does it mean God's a winner? A winner does something only because there's a profit. So in other words, like this. There's 3 levels. And this is really based on a Gemara which talks about someone who was sick. to give another example, you have a person, he was sick, I mentioned this before, or he went through an accident. Okay, he gets well. So there's three levels. There's one, that chas v'shalom, that some people don't necessarily get well. But there's one level where you get well, but you're still limping. There's scars, there's some remnants. You know, I said this many times, when I was in a car accident, and immediately after the accident, the doctors were saying, wow, it's a miracle, you're alive, there's no loss of limb, it wasn't, etc., etc. They're giving you all this confidence, and they're making you feel good, and I believe Take was a miracle. After 2 years, when I'm still talking about, let's say, some nerve endings, and then I'm still talking about the feelings and the things that are not so great. So, after 2 years, the doctor gives me a slap on the back. He says, Rabbi, or listen, mate, ain't never going to be the same. Okay? I'm still jumping for joy of the miracles that I saw. But after 2 years, then the doctor says, listen, mate, ain't never going to be the same. So that's very fantastic, Baruch Hashem, nothing serious. But that's the first level, which means you recovered, but it's not the same. Then we come to a second level. What's the second level? You're as good as ever. Wow. Person lived through a traumatic experience, a survivor of World War II, and you're as good as ever. That's pretty amazing. Somebody's as good as ever. And you think that's great. No! That's not what we're talking about now. The whole part is you're better than ever. Because you went through that experience what you're going through, now the level that you reached is higher and greater than anything you had before, and only because you went through that previous experience, which until now you saw as negative. And this is the same thing in Avodas Hashem. It's called, there's a level of tshuva, there's a level of tshuva me'ira, there's a level of tshuva me'ava, tshuva out of fear, tshuva out of love, and then there's a level of tshuva me'ava rabba. And we say that one of those tshuva me'ava rabba is doinois naslik izochis. The very sins are transformed into good deeds. And it comes out there's three levels. One level is oiker avoin. One level is that kimum shenesrape, you were sick and then you got healed, but there's still some scars. Second level, as if you were never sick. Third level, you're better than as if you were never sick. You were never as good like this before. That's the third level. And that's what we're talking about. That's what we're waiting for when Mashiach comes. We're going to experience a revelation of godliness that never was before, ever, anywhere. And that's going to be what happens when Mashiach comes. And that's what we're waiting for. We're not davening for things to be as good as ever. We're not davening, Hashivenu Hashem Elecha Chadash Yameinu Kikedem is not enough. We need more than that. We're coming to the ultimate that never was before, and it's because of Yirid the Tzorech Aliyah. That's the point. And that's the meaning of Nachamu, Nechama in Kaflayim, in double. Double means something which is unparalleled. Double means exponentially. Double means something which is totally unprecedented, and etc. Now we can connect it with a pasuk from the parasha. There's a pasuk with Moshe Rabbeinu is talking to Yidden, and he's telling them about how they're going to turn away from Hashem, etc. So a very interesting taich according to Chassidus. This is what the pasuk says. Right after it says pasuk Chof Ches in Kapitel Daled, it says Vavadatem Shomalikim Maisei De Odom Eitz ve'evan Ashalei Yirin V'lo Yishmun V'lo Yechlun V'lo Yirichun. So it's talking about negative things that we are going to be serving idol worshippers. We're going to be serving idols. But then the pasuk right after that says Uvikashtem Mishom Es Hashem Elikecha U'Matzosa Ki Sidreshenu B'chol Levavcha V'chol Nafshecha. Which means you will seek Hashem from there and you will find Him. If you seek Him with all your heart and with all your soul. Chassidus has a great emphasis over here that the pasuk says, "Uvikashta misham." Sham means from over there. Over there sounds like a faraway place. And what happens when it's going to be Uvikashta misham? Umatzasa. Chassidus says Mitzia means be'ein harech. And this is the point, the analogy they give is the most expensive, precious, gorgeous, unbelievable pearls are the ones that are the deepest in the ocean. So the godly sparks and your development of reaching the highest levels of connection to Hashem, Afilu tzadikim gemurim en yichaylim lamid sham. It says in the place of Bali Tshuva, the greatest levels of the righteous people, pious people, cannot stand there. En yichaylim, it's not even within their capabilities, because it's a different phenomena. And this is what it means. Uvikashta misham. And this is what every one of us has to know. Don't do anything that's terrible. Like don't just go in the right, straight, and narrow path, as they say. But each person knows where he made a mistake, where he went wrong. So what you have to know is like this, my friend. Uvikashta misham, wherever you are, as the famous song goes, no matter where you may roam, you can always come back home. No matter where you may roam, misham. Misham means you're so wayward, you're so lost, you're so confused, you're in such turmoil. That's what it means misham. You're far, far away. But nevertheless, you should know that if it'll be vikashta misham, what's going to happen is umatzasa. Matzasa means unexpected. Something so unpredictable, so surprising. That's what the word matzasa means, find. Find means, hast nicht gerechnet sich auf them. You're walking down the street and you find something, wow. So on the one hand, there's uvikashtem, you have to seek, you have to work. Don't forget the door is always open, you have to knock on the door. You have to be spiritually curious, etc., etc. That spark, fan the flame, ignite the spark. But what you have to realize is that it's the misham, from the deepest, deepest depths of the ocean, in the abyss, which is an abyss, l'fi erech, relative to who you are. You should know that uvikashta misham, and you'll come to matzasa. You come to the aliyah, which is bein erech. So the Eibusha should help that we should see in our lives that whatever we have to go through, and it should stop this second, whatever we have to go through or are going through in certain areas of health, or nachas from the family, or livelihood, or even spiritual crises, whatever it is, we have to know, don't give up. Don't give up. There's only one reason all of this is happening. I believe this so powerfully, and this is one of the things that keeps me going on in life. Every single thing, I have to believe this 1,000,000%. Every single thing that's happening to me in my life is for one reason and one reason only: to make me a better person. And I have to tap into that to work on myself, to see how it's going to make me a better person. And then I appreciate it, and I give it meaning, and you reframe it, and you experience it all differently. So the Eibusha Shetaka, do it now. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami, Yoimar, Eloi Kechem. We should see in a revealed way the double Nechama, the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, take it from Yad Mamish, now, posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.